Today, I'm going to be fixing some of my worst slimes and giving them a new life. Let's get started. Okay, so the first slime that we have here, I actually just found in a random drawer. I'm pretty sure I remember this being a cloud slime when I first made it, and I'm not actually sure why I made this, but we have it now, and it's time to fix it. You can kind of see here, it's not very cloud slimy anymore, and it's definitely more of like an icy cloud cream texture, and it just feels like it's been sat for too long, and it's kind of gone a little bit off. The more I played with it, the kind of stickier and wet it felt, and I feel like it needed a little bit more substance. So I know I'm gonna add glue to something that's already sticky, and you guys don't like when I do that. But you have to understand, there's a method to the madness. Of course, adding more glue to it right now is gonna make it stickier, but when it comes to activating it again later, it's actually gonna give it a lot more form and structure because the activator's got more glue to activate instead of wet, sticky snow. Now, because the slime was originally pink and green, it's kind of gone this bright orange color, which is actually kind of cool, but I don't want it to be that color. I'm going for like a cookie dough theme because I feel like the texture would match perfectly, and the orange just looks too similar to the original product. Now, this is when things started to go a little bit wrong because I was using gloves to try and stop the slime from staining my hands, which worked, by the way, and I was mixing it like I normally would, kind of thinking that the activator might not have been working, until after about 10 minutes of mixing, I realized that the gloves themselves were actually sticking to the slime, even though the slime wasn't sticky anymore. It got so bad I literally had to take the gloves off of my hands and pick them out from the slime. It's safe to say these gloves were not saved, but luckily the slime was okay, so I decided to add some activator and just go in with a spatula, which I should have done from the beginning. Now, this wasn't actually the end of things going wrong because the activator kind of made the slime look like a hamburger, and not really the cookie dough vibe I was going for. I mean, I probably didn't add enough food dye and maybe overactivated it a little bit, but I added some clay to try and revive the texture back together and maybe give it a thicker cookie dough feel. It did take a little while to mix in, and the end result texture wasn't actually that smooth, but we're not done yet, so I think it's a kind of trust the process moment. The clay really did lighten the color, but it wasn't really the color I was going for, so I actually added some brown and orange dye to get the perfect gingerbread cookie color. I was really happy with how this turned out, but the texture wasn't really what I envisioned it to be, so I actually added some instant snow and just mixed it in. I didn't add any water because the slime was already quite watery, and I wanted the snow to absorb that and just make it fluffy, and it really did work. It seemed super fluffy, but also at the same time creamy enough to look like cookie dough, and I think the color was just everything. I decided to put it into a separate container and just swirl it on top, which was seriously so satisfying, and then topped it with a mix of different sprinkles, which I then meticulously organized. Once I was finished with that, I topped it with this adorable little bear charm which I found, along with this little peppermint swirl. I was so impressed with how this turned out, and it looked adorable. The texture was perfect. It was super creamy and light, but also dense enough and fluffy enough to feel like real cookie dough. Of course, I didn't want it to feel too much like real cookie dough because it is slime, but I couldn't have asked for a better end result. I just have to make sure I don't eat this. Okay, so this next one's an old Halloween slime from a few years back, and I don't think there's anything actually wrong with it other than it's just melted because it's been sat for a few years, but I wanted to fix it anyway because it's old and I want to give it a new life. I poured it into a bowl and added some more glue just because the slime was kind of small, and luckily enough, all of the Halloween glitter and add-ins stuck to the bottom of the container, so I didn't have to put any work in to try and get those out. I added some activator and the slime came together actually really quickly. I could have left it like this, but I thought it was kind of boring, so I added some instant snow and some more red food coloring, and then just topped it off with some water, enough to make a cloud slime. Now, although the start of this slime was super easy to activate, this next part took a while. I had to mix the snow for ages to dissolve it into the slime, but eventually it did start to come together and it formed a super bright red fluffy cloud slime, and it kind of reminded me of like Christmas wool jumpers just because of how fluffy and bright it was. Honestly, I could have left it here and just kept this as a red slime, but I thought that was kind of boring. As much as I love the bright red color, I just wanted to know what it would look like swirled next to a white part of slime to make it almost look like a candy cane. I just took a ball of white cloud slime and put it in a container with half of the red and just kept swirling it until I got a swirl that I thought was good enough. I'm kind of a perfectionist with this stuff, so on my like 4th attempt I was happy with it, and you can't tell me this swirl doesn't look perfect. Now, of course, I couldn't leave the slime just like this, so I found this adorable little reindeer charm to stick in the middle and used some white and red little Fimos and sprinkled them on top. I feel like this wasn't really a fixing, I kind of just reactivated some slime, but I'm definitely happy with the result compared to what it was to start with, and I would take this any day over just that melted red clear slime. I feel like I should have scented this like candy canes, but let me know what you think an appropriate scent for this one would be. I feel like using the clear slime to make it into a cloud actually made it super soft because it is so fluffy and light and just drizzles amazingly. Next up, we have another random slime that I just found in a drawer. This one kind of looks like it's separated and had like a layer of like clumpy clay on top, and I could feel that it was super sticky, so I actually just scooped it out with a spatula into a bowl and learnt my lesson from the first slime we did. Once it was in the bowl, I could see that there were a few beads in there and it looked like a little bit of plastic snow, and obviously the clay too. I mixed this all together and tried to combine everything as best as I could and added some more glue just because I don't know, to be honest. It didn't really need glue, but I was kind of worried that the clay might have made it hard to activate, so I just wanted to be sure that this would work. Once this was mixed, I added some activator, and I actually added way too much activator, so I had to pour like all of it back out. Now, I'm sure some of you are wondering why I didn't try and remove the fishbowl beads, but there were only like 5 or 6 in there, and they didn't seem to be changing the texture very much, so I kind of left them in because I thought they looked cute. Now, this slime actually had 3 different textures, so I decided to just stick with one of them and add more plastic snow to turn it into a snow fizz slime. I was debating on whether I should have added some clay or just add more beads, but the slime kind of felt like it was sticky enough for the plastic snow, so I thought it would kind of be the best option for the texture. Now, when I say this slime took a lot of plastic snow, I mean a lot. This almost took a quarter of a giant bag of plastic snow, and that's a lot more than I'd usually use, so I don't know whether it's because of the ingredients the slime had in it, but it absorbed so much more than it normally would. The main thing that drew me to this slime was actually the purple color, but I feel like we kind of lost it with the amount of snow that we added, so I went ahead and added a splash more of some purple dye just to kind of bring the lavender color back to life a little bit. I mixed it almost fully because I kind of liked the slight marble it had, and then just packed it into a container. Of course, I spent ages trying to get the perfect swirl, and this isn't actually that easy to do because it's not as smooth as cloud slime. I topped the slime with some iridescent purple glitter, and it was honestly kind of giving me like amethyst vibes, so I added a little pink diamond charm along with a cow just because I thought it looked cute. I feel like when you add glitter to slime, it never looks as good as it does in person, but I was really impressed with how this turned out. It was super crunchy and smooth, and I think because it actually had some clay in it, it made it easier to play with and a little bit softer than a usual snow fizz slime. There were a few little fishbowl beads in there, and they didn't fall out surprisingly, which added to the texture. Well, this was so much fun. It was so great seeing some of these slimes that have just sat around for years, being completely transformed into something brand new. Although some of them didn't need a ton of work to them, I really loved being able to turn them into something completely different to what they were before. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit subscribe. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.